Good morning. Welcome into 5 Clubs here on Golf Channel. You can, of course, also listen on Channel 92 on Sirius XM. That is PGA TOUR Radio. It's great to have you with us from our studios here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am Gary Williams, and every day this program is proudly brought to you by Century Insurance, right by you. When it comes to all the things that matter, their relationships in the game of golf, it is Century Insurance. From the USGA to the First Tee to their partnership with the PGA Tour, we certainly are very proud to be aligned with Century. Of course, Peter Millar, everything that I wear, everything that I have worn for the last 15 years is the apparel leader. Doesn't matter where you're going, what you're doing, they've got you covered. Golf Pride, when it comes to grips, that too, the Align Max grips are the grips that I have on all of my clubs now, not to mention the reverse taper putter grip as well. Played some golf Friday, not bad. Details not on my round because nobody cares what I shot or what you shot. And then finally, Pinehurst, the cradle of American golf. When it comes to planning a trip, consider that they've got 10 golf courses, 11 soon enough. They've got cottages now at Pinehurst number 8. They've got the new clubhouse at Pinehurst number 10 that was just voted the best new golf course in America in 2024. There is always a good reason, and every day is a good day to be at Pinehurst. All right, we got plenty to get to on this Monday. To say that winning is hard, it sounds glib. It is, but it is. And the examples of what transpired over the weekend are just the latest, and they won't be the last. We'll probably have more this week in various forms and fashions. But joining me this morning, starting with Steve Wheatcroft. Steve was so close to winning on the PGA Tour in Houston. You're going, I know that name. And he's probably watching and listening right now going, please don't remind them of the shot that I hit from the greenside bunker on 18 in Houston. I'm not going to go into detail. My point is, he was that close. And he had a career that lasted 7 full seasons on the PGA Tour, not to mention the same number essentially on the Korn Ferry Tour as well. And then his career was over. And then he found himself spiraling into a bad place. Well, this week, Steve Wheatcroft is going to celebrate and be recognized for 1 year of sobriety. And it's not to have him on here for him to do that because, as he knows, it's not about attraction, it's about promotion, as they like to say. But he is doing good. He has created a foundation to try to provide people, specifically people in the game of golf, at the scholastic level, at the collegiate level, the resources they need for their own mental health. I'm very proud of him, and I don't say that in a patronizing way. We've known each other a long time. He's a friend. We walk a similar journey, a life of recovery. I'm excited for him to share with you what he's doing with the Mulligan Foundation. And also joining us this morning, a regular contributor to this program, Gabby Herzig. She just watched her brother's college career end yesterday at Colgate. We'll talk a little bit about that, but we're going to talk more about her reflecting back on the Masters tournament, some of the things that she wrote for The Athletic, which proved to be really important in terms of the context of the psychological and intellectual challenge for anybody to win a major tournament, in particular Rory McIlroy's. We'll talk to her about that. Some of the latest news as it pertains to the Tour Championship, which she has reported on as well as anybody since the beginning of the year, so she will join us at the bottom of the hour. But let's start with some of the events that we witnessed over the weekend. Not maybe every shot, because somebody pulled the plug, literally, on the Zurich Classic. Thankfully, in a weird way, they had a weather delay, which allowed them to get whatever it was that they were dealing with. And believe me, technical issues with live TV, it's part of the gig, but that was something that was dubious and unusual. We literally didn't see any golf, and thankfully, for a while, they didn't have any golf to show, but they finished it yesterday. So Andrew Novak and Ben Griffin, they got themselves a W. They're first. And they're not the first to get their first at the Zurich in this team tournament. But Andrew Novak, who is having a fantastic season, and Ben Griffin, who's having a very solid season. He's now got 4 top 10s. Andrew Novak, as we know, was in a playoff just last week with Justin Thomas at the RBC Heritage. That happened a couple of years ago with Patrick Cantlay. Patrick Cantlay, more established than Andrew Novak, but they both get their first win. This is massive in so many areas. The FedEx Cup points, the entries now into the Signature Series events, obviously the PGA Championship. You see the Højgaards. And by the way, let me just mention that Johnson Wagner has now picked 3 straight winners. Rory, JT, and then he hitches his wagon to Novak and Griffin. Taylor Zarzer picked the Højgaards. They come up a shot short. They took like 9 different drops on the last hole because of temporary immovable obstructions. Jake Knapp, Frankie Zappin, they finished third alone. That up and down on 18. That was money, boys, and points. And then you have Lipsky and Wu, Trace Crow, Taylor Dixon, Carl Phillips, Michael Torbjornsson, and then Luke List and Henrik Norlander. Those guys in the tie for 4th at 25 under. Remy and Justin Lauer, Isaiah Salinda, Kevin Velo at 24 under par. Those guys tied for 8th. And then finally, Bridgman and Phillips. The names you do not see are Rory and Shane Lowry, who kind of had a flat Sunday. But it wasn't a flat Sunday for the people who are out there. I'm going to have a little thought before the show is over about Rory's presence at the Zurich Classic. I don't know if these guys are going to, do it again next year or not. Doesn't matter. The fact is they were there, and that gave this event, which needs any boost. They had Colin Morikawa in the field. Him and Kurt Kitayama didn't even make the cut. But Rory, coming off the Masters win, for him to be there to defend the title, it's always going to be a party, but they really gave that event an enormous boost. And you could tell by the way that he was kind of carrying himself around there. I think the environment itself lent him to be in a better space, but I can promise you one thing. If he didn't hit that shot on the first playoff hole at Augusta National and beat Justin Rose in that playoff, I'm guessing the Zurich Classic wasn't happening because he would have needed more time. Lord knows how much time he would have needed, but he wins the Masters, and now it's going to be really interesting. He's going to play next week at the Truist Championship up in Philly, then, of course, the PGA to follow right here in Charlotte. So for Novak and Griffin, that's a wonderful win. And these are 2 guys who their route to the PGA Tour, Ben Griffin gave up the dream temporarily, went to work for a mortgage company. This is somebody who grew up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. He was a member at the same club my parents were members at for years and years and years. And as a matter of fact, when he was 10 years of age, he won the junior club championship at Chapel Hill Country Club. My parents lived on the 5th green there. So little Benny Griffin running around, goes to the University of North Carolina, and he goes on to try to play professional golf. It doesn't work initially. He leaves it, comes back, and now he's a winner on the PGA Tour. And Andrew Novak is somebody who now is 6th. He's not locked for the Tour Championship. There are 3 guys based on the quantitative data, and that is Rory, Scheffler, and JT, who are going to be at Eastlake. But Andrew Novak is a great, great story. For him to ascend from somebody who was, a good high school player, obviously good enough to go on and play down in Spartanburg, South Carolina at Wofford. That's not the traditional route, but he is somebody who, I'm not saying he is front and center on Keegan Bradley's Ryder Cup radar, but he's not in the pool? Why wouldn't he be in the pool? I mean, look at it. The deep end of the pool, there's not a lot of occupants. There are not a lot of guys that you're going, well, he's a lock, and he's a lock, and he's a lock. This stuff happens. It'll be interesting to watch him now that there's a level of relevancy for him that's fun and interesting. But let's transition, because there was a major championship this week, and it was the Chevron Championship. And I devoted some time on Wednesday talking about the space that the LPGA, and in particular women's professional golf, currently has. Mao Saigo won the Chevron Championship in a 5-hole kind of gangsome playoff that materialized out of nowhere. She bogeyed the 15th hole, and at that moment, KPMG Sports and their data, which was kind of in real time, obviously providing you with win and winning probability statistics, she was at 2.3% that she was going to win. She won. She made the lone birdie on the par 5 18th, which the hole itself, and I don't want to be somebody, and I think anybody who knows me, whether it be in the 4 months now that we've been doing this show or in the 10 years prior being a host on Morning Drive on Golf Channel, I'm not the connoisseur. I'm not the guy who's ripping off hot takes left, right, and center. I'm also not a hit and run artist. But this event is not going anywhere. But this event needs to have some type of reboot. And it starts with the atmosphere, because there's one thing that has to be a prerequisite for any major championship. I don't care where it is. The atmosphere can't be flat. And the atmosphere at the Chevron Championship was just that. And it's been pretty much that way for 3 years. And I talked about the money that has been infused, particularly at the major championship level in women's golf here over the last 5-6 years. And I mentioned the name KPMG. They've made more investment into golf in terms of individual sponsorship of players, not to mention that aligning themselves and giving fuel to things like the Underrated Golf Tour, which is junior golf. And then, of course, the KPMG Women's PGA Championship. They lit the match on all of this, in addition to the CME Group, as I said last week. Money's great. And there was a great line that was invoked by a very, very wealthy man when he spoke to a class of students in economics some years ago. And he fielded a question. It was more of a statement than it was a question. And the student said, you know, money can't make you happy. And this elderly gentleman, very well heeled, looked at him with a wry smile and said, no, it can't make me happy, but I'll tell you, it's never made me sad either. Here's the thing about money. When you throw money at something, that doesn't make it great. It gives it the roots to make it great. But unless you have a vision with some creativity, ingenuity, and hard work, those roots are never going to germinate. In this venue, they're not going to go away for the time being from Carlton Woods. So you have to improve the atmosphere to begin with. And here's the other thing that this event is kind of butting up against and having to navigate right now, and that is the psychological space that people who love golf are in right now, because the Masters tournament has always been Global's golf renewal, and they have added the Augusta National Women's Amateur. So now you have this women's amateur event that precedes the first women's professional major of the year, and it's on the ultimate stage that you could possibly have it on, Augusta National, which makes it an unfair fight to begin with. But you also have a condition that now exists because of that aforementioned amateur event. They moved the first women's major championship from before the Masters in what was a very comfortable space, which was out there in the California desert, and know the build out and the stage and the enormity of it all was not nearly as grand, and nor could it be. What can be? Nothing can be. But it had familiarity, it had nostalgia, it had holes that everybody knew. Here's the thing about Carlton Woods in Houston. It lacks atmosphere, it lacks familiarity, and you don't have to be familiar with holes. If they have flair, if they're interesting, then you'll get over the nostalgia and the familiarity of the holes that you used to watch every year on the Dinah Shore. But now you have holes that are not that memorable, including the final hole, which I'm going to say this, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. It ain't good. And it ain't good because you have a condition where players are trying to carry water that fronts the green to a par 5, and they can just play wall ball all day. So it deprives the hole of whatever its true character is, and I don't know how much it actually possesses to begin with. And now you put these players in this wonky situation of possibly having to take drops, drop an anchor, figure out where they're going to drop. And I'm not giving an excuse altogether for Ariya Jutanugarn, who came to the 18th with a one-hole lead to literally whiff the chip and then find herself in the playoff. The closing hole is a problem. The atmosphere is a bigger problem. And here's the last thing. The LPGA needs to decide who their leader is going to be, because whatever creativity, ingenuity, and vision that tour is going to have has to come from the leader. And currently, they don't have one in a permanent position. So I hope for their sake that they figure this thing out, because you do not want to set the tone for your major championship season at a place that leaves people wanting to be critical. And I'd like to believe people don't want to reflexively be critical. They want to celebrate the winner. A 23-year-old who's now won for the first time, who was the Rookie of the Year last year. That's where we want to start. And congratulations, it's huge. She's already got 3 top 10s in other majors. Now she's got her first win, and it's a major championship. All right, we're going to take our first break. Steve Wheatcroft, He was a guy who toiled, got to the best tour in the world, almost won, and then he toiled in a different direction, in a dangerous direction. He's not only found his footing in life, he's got a path forward to help others. He joins me next, Gabby Herzig, at the bottom of the hour, a Monday edition of 5 Clubs on Golf Channel and on PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92, Sirius XM. Back with you right after this. Welcome back in on this Monday. This is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel, and of course on Channel 92 on Sirius XM, that is PGA Tour Radio. This segment brought to you by Golf Pride. The Align Max grips, I try them. If you have not tried a new grip in a while, I'm telling you, it's like laces on a football. They're conforming to USGA rules, but all their grips are trusted by more players around the world at every level. It is Golf Pride. Joining me now is somebody who has got a grip on a lot of things now, but similar to me, there was a time when we didn't. And this is somebody who had 170 starts on the PGA Tour, 175 on the Korn Ferry Tour, and now he is embarking on the next chapter of his life, starting with the Mulligan Foundation. I'm speaking of Steve Wheatcroft. Wheaty, good morning, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Gary. Thanks for having me on. You're looking good.
Well, thank you. So do you. And as we begin, I mentioned this when I started the program talking about you coming on, and I said, you know, you and I know that we know this term. It's not about attraction, it's about promotion. And we're not here to promote certain things, but I do want to acknowledge that this week you will celebrate a year of sobriety. It's the reason why you and I are having this conversation, because if you aren't doing what you're doing, if I'm not doing what I'm doing on my own road daily to recovery, life wouldn't look the way that it does. So let me ask you, as you sit here now a year, what stands out for you as you reflect on this year, which is just a day, that stands out most about this last year for you?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you acknowledging it. I know it's a day that most people probably look at and say, you know, hey, congratulations, you made it a year without having a drink. But to you and I, it was more than just the drink. It was the darkness. It was everything that came with it. It was, I'm just glad, more than anything, I'm glad to be clear-minded. I'm glad to be on the other side of it. I'm glad to be positive again. I was always a positive person, and I was beyond negative for the better part of 2 years. And it's a scary, scary, dark place. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. My son came in the day before my birthday in February and said, "Hey, Dad, you know, your birthday's tomorrow." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I completely forgot. I'll be honest." But I know when May 2nd is, and it might not mean much to a lot of people, but it meant something to me that, you know what, one day at a time, and all of a sudden you got, you know, 365 one day at a time. So that's all we're trying to do. And but no, I'm in a great place. I don't miss that life. I don't miss the drinking. I don't miss any of it. And just one foot in front of the other.
No doubt, as you know, you hear stacking 24s on top of each other. And back to your first point about 1 year, you and I were at a place, and there was a time when both of us really had a hard time thinking about a day without one. Like, is it even possible, let alone a week? And that's kind of part of the process of recalibrating everything and just focus on today. You know, there's a lot of insane behavior around when you get into that space, into that dark place, as you talked about. And, you know, putting a depressant into a depressed person usually doesn't produce very good results. You dealt with depression. So did I. Did your drinking, when your professional career on the PGA Tour, did it start to accelerate? And did you find yourself struggling to go, why can't I slow this down?
While I was playing, I was pretty good. I would say I was in control of it. I know towards the end of my career, it started to ramp up a little bit, but it was still just social fun. It wasn't getting carried away. It wasn't until I was out of the game about a year and a half that I kind of had that awakening. And a lot of my stuff was just identity issues. I had no idea who I was anymore. I spent the better part of 35 years being Steve the golfer. And then one day I just realized, that guy's long gone. He's dead. I don't know who I am. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what my calling is. And I got depressed, and rather than face the demons head on and try to attack them, I had a drink one day and it relaxed the heck out of me. And then I had another drink and it relaxed me more. And then that became a way of life. And it's obviously not the way you want to handle things, but it was the easy way out for me. And luckily my body had enough and started to fight back a little bit here. And it more than anything, it was my wake-up call.
Let's get to, finding your calling. The Mulligan Foundation, I want you to explain to people, the impetus for this, the motivation for this is that you've seen it as somebody who was an elite athlete playing in the best tour in the world. The idea that mental health and why it's not addressed and stigma, that this is something that is floated around and kind of hovers around all athletes, particularly the ones at the highest level. First of all, why do you think that is? Why do you think that stigma about talking about mental health is so persistent?
Oh, man. Boy, I wish I knew. I mean, that's the $1 million question, and I wish I had the $1 million answer to go with it. It's crazy to think that, mental health awareness has never gotten more awareness than what it does right now. It's never gotten more donations, and yet the suicide rate has doubled in the last 20 years with athletes. Something's broken in the delivery. I don't know where the stigma comes from, but it's very predominant in a lot of sports, and golf is definitely one of them. You don't want to show any weakness to your competitors, and working on your mental health is still considered a weakness out there. And I don't understand the root cause behind it, but our goal is just to, if we can't change the stigma with current athletes, let's work on the younger athletes to kind of change their view of it, so that stigma can slowly start to fade.
Well, and that is exactly what the Mulligan Foundation is intending to do, which is, if you're an elite athlete, you probably have certain resources. The scholastic athlete, the college athlete, despite the presence now of NIL, it doesn't mean that you have, a lot of disposable for clinical or professional care. So what exactly are you trying to do to create this platform and this portal, so to speak, for young aspiring golfers trying to be as good as they can be to get help when they need it?
Yeah, Gary, I'll be honest with you. When I started the Mulligan Foundation, I thought it was going to be basically solely for, professional athletes, PGA Tour, LPGA, Korn Ferry, whatever it might have been. And then as the process has kind of evolved, I've realized that, the inner circles out there on the PGA Tour are very tough to get into, and they're their images are very fragile, and they don't want any kind of knock to their brand, whether it be working on their mental health. So I started to pivot the discussion more towards PGA professionals. The PGA of America has been wonderful. They've been working with me a ton, and a bunch of their members have reached out to me personally on the side and just divulged their stories, and whatever we can do to help them, that'd be wonderful. We're working with the First Tee right now. We're trying to get an AJGA event next year with a bit of a mental health backbone to it, and just create a lot of camaraderie for the kids. Have a bunch of nightly events and things like that, just things that the PGA Tour doesn't do anymore. They don't do a lot of outside events. They don't get people together. So, the guys that are going from their hotels to the golf course where they play their practice rounds, usually by themselves. They hit balls by themselves. They go to the gym by themselves, and they go back to a hotel room and they isolate themselves. And that's become the new standard out there. So we're trying to, shake things up a little bit on the collegiate level, the junior level, and just promote camaraderie, promote self-worth, try to help kids realize that their self-worth isn't tied to their golf scores. Because I think so many people, professionals included, I was 100% guilty of that, is that, if I shot 65 on a golf course, I felt like I was a better human being. And if I shot 77, I felt like I was worthless. And, it's just kind of the way we're wired, but hopefully we can start to redo some of that wiring.
You used the most important word. It's also the most dangerous word, isolation. It's what I, we didn't just pursue it. We were hell-bent to achieve it and to get to that place. And golfers on this kind of nomadic lonely journey in large measure, find themselves there whether they want to be there or not. So if people want to get involved, give people an idea if they're hearing this, if they know of somebody, if they just have a reflex of saying, God, I'd love to contribute, how can they? What can people do?
Yeah, obviously our website is up and running. It's themulliganfoundation.org. By all means, please go to the website, check it out. There's a bunch of great information on there. There's even a donation link if you feel the need to help our cause out a little bit. We have big plans for the foundation. Who knows, 3 years from now, we might look back and say, hey, look, we tried, but it wasn't working. But that's the way I see it is, we just announced our first project with the Annika Foundation up at Old Barnwell. She, mentors a bunch of women up there. And one person, more or less running the show by himself over here, got 13 professional golfers the mental health help that they might need. Maybe they don't need it. Maybe they do need it. Maybe they'll need it a year from now. But we were able to put that in place for them and take the financial responsibility away from it. And that's just one person doing one small thing. And I'm building this thing up as fast as I can. We've got a great board of directors. We got a great advisory panel with gentlemen like yourself that we're willing to help out the cause. But yeah, by all means, people, themulliganfoundation.org. And my email is steve@themulliganfoundation.org. You can email me personally and we'll find a way to do something together.
Last thing, there are a lot of paradoxes that you've had to learn about, understand, me too. One of them is that in order to keep it, you got to give it away. Meaning in order to keep your state of recovery and to feel like you've got emotional sobriety, that you got to give it away in some respects. It's a pay it forward kind of thing. And so when people say thank you to you, I know that you're saying, no, thank you. Do you feel like this is your calling? That this is never in your wildest dreams that Steve Wheatcroft, trying to be the best golfer in the world that he could be, now at this point in your life that you have found something that is the most passionate thing that you've ever been involved in?
Boy, I hope so, because I love doing this. I really do. I love helping others. I love the letters and the emails and the private messages I get through social media from people just divulging everything that's going on in their life. And I'm the first person that they tell a lot of times. They haven't told their wives, their families, whatnot, but they feel because I was willing to be open and vulnerable and share, that they want to do the same. And I love that. If I can help them in any way, I would love to. I mean, I've gotten hundreds of those messages and it's great. I love every single one of them. When I released that first letter kind of last August,
yes.
I took my time when I got out of treatment and I just said, I feel like there's something I'm missing. I made sure my health was good. My faith was good. My family was good. Everything around me was good. And then I just felt like I was missing something. And I just felt like I needed to share because other people needed to hear it, that it was okay. Because I know that's what I was looking for in my darkest times. I needed to hear from somebody that this is going to be okay. And, there's help out there and we can help you. And once I found that help, thank God I did. I don't know if I'd be doing this call otherwise, but it's just amazing how life can turn around that fast for you.
No question. The Mulligan Foundation, if you're curious, want to inquire, or interested, please go to the website and check it out. Hey, brother, just for today, I'm proud of you. I know that this year has been a very rewarding year in countless ways, and I look forward to helping in any way that I can as you and I march forward with a lot of other people. You don't know what people are dealing with, but thanks so much.
One day at a time, Gary, and this is a nice way to start today, so I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Steve Wheatcroft, again, CEO and the founder of the Mulligan Foundation. When we continue, Gabby Herzig, the great writer from The Athletic and a contributor here at 5 Clubs, 2 weeks removed from what we saw at Augusta National. Not only Rory, but also her experience the following day and reflecting back on that and some other items as it pertains to news regarding the Tour Championship and also the next major, and somebody else who was a part of a story that she worked on during Masters Week. All of that is coming up when she joins us right here on 5 Clubs on Golf Channel and Channel 92 on Sirius XM PGA Tour Radio. Back with you right after this. Back in on a Monday on 5 Clubs on Golf Channel, also on PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. It's good to have her back with us. A couple weeks removed from the Masters tournament. And this segment is brought to you by Piners, the cradle of American golf when it comes to planning a trip, not just what you're going to do on the golf course with the cradle, and now 10 golf courses, 11 soon enough by 2027. It's all the other great things at the cradle of American golf. You saw the images, that of course, Gabby Herzig of The Athletic. She joins us now 2 weeks ago today. At about this time, I don't know exactly what time her tee time was at Augusta National, but she had to wait and wait and wait and wait. So let's start there. Before we do a little bit more kind of reflection on Rory, 2 weeks ago today, you're waking up and you're going to play Augusta National after covering one of the most exhausting and exhilarating Masters in tournament history. What place that day, that moment will stay with you forever? One image looking around that got to you to the point that will be the one that will last and stand tall forever. Where was it?
Yeah, Gary, thanks as always for having me.
Of course.
I'm still reflecting, honestly, on that day. And like you said, it was hilarious to wait for the tee time to happen for those 3 days. You obviously find out on the Friday, and then you're just waiting and waiting, and the anticipation is building. But I go back to the day, and there are so many moments that stand out. I think one of the things I appreciate the most after the fact is that I didn't have my phone, and I could really just stay in the present moment the entire time. But I think the way that some memories came back to me throughout the round was really the coolest part. I think back to the 7th green in particular. I actually was able to attend the Masters for the first time when I was a kid, when I was 12 years old with my dad and my grandparents. And I remembered so vividly sitting behind that green and watching the tournament for 4 hours on end. It's one of the best spots to watch on the property. And then standing there on the actual putting green, I had a great up and down from the front right bunker. There was like one of the first shots that really had me settle into the round, I would say. And just looking around and remembering and being taken back to that place with my family, it's such a place that it holds so many memories, and it's that same setting and the same contours that you see every single year, that everyone kind of has that unique memory to fall back on, and that one was mine, and I keep thinking back to it.
That's really neat. We're going to have more on golf and your family before we're done. We're now 2 weeks removed from what transpired. Obviously, it was the Sunday at Augusta National. You had written a piece that dropped in the middle of Masters Week, essentially on the eve of the tournament, and a lot of it was focused on Rory. You also had contributions and thought from Jordan Spieth. But here now he's crossed this space, this massive space in terms of where he sits historically now, but also psychologically. And I wrote an article that dropped last night about what now. So, Gabby, what do you think now? Because, yes, he should be liberated. There should be a sense of great freedom, since most people associated with what he's done over the last 10 years is almost something that morphed into a burden. But he's also a human. And when you achieve the greatest feat you ever could there be some sense of, like, why? Why dig in as much as I did before? Where do you think we're going with all of this?
I think it's a great question, Gary. I honestly think that in some ways this is uncharted territory for Rory. Obviously, we have no way of knowing what's going on in his head. I think that's one of the most important things about all these discussions about mental game. You can think and try to get a peek into someone's mind as much as you want, but at the end of the day, it's yours. Some of those thoughts that cross through his mind and through ours when we play the game, you don't want to tell anyone. Some of the insights that he's let us in on over the past month or so, even at the Players Championship, going back to when he said he thought about his ball going into the water on the 17th hole. He's really let us have that peek inside his mind. But now I think, over the past 11 years, 14 years, he's really been working towards this moment. I mean, the resilience that he's spoken of so many times, that fear of repeated heartbreak. And now he's actually, he's got that monkey off his back, as we all like to say, the scar tissue that I wrote about ahead of the Masters. Maybe that's not something that's on the top of his mind anymore. And I don't know if he actually thought about this phase. He said so many times that there were points in his career where he might not have even thought that it was going to happen for him. So I wonder if now he's just kind of got this blank slate to work with. And in my mind, that could be dangerous, because then you don't have those expectations weighing you down. You don't have the weight of the world on your back when you're trying to go to these major championships and make a run. So I think the fact that it's kind of the unknown for Rory right now will really be beneficial for him, and also a journey of his own, just figuring out how he's able to operate in this new headspace.
Yeah, it's you think about not only the time, but most recently 2022 at the Open, and then 23 and 24 at the U.S. Open. You've been at all these press conferences, and he wants to share, and he's inclined to share, but there was always, I felt like, Gabby, this undercurrent of fragility to him. Yes, that he would also display great resilience to put himself back in these vulnerable, highly pressurized spaces. Even though it was circuitous how he got across there, like that kind of cloud of, gosh, we're all waiting for whether it's failure or him not crossing the line to be what we're going to be writing about, that's gone. It doesn't mean he doesn't get dinged again. What do you think he's going to posture like? Is he going to be kind of like mini boss bully-ish? Like I kind of think he was Saturday into Sunday, shutting down Bryson, but also coupled with a little bit of the bouncy Rory, kind of effervescent. Like, what is it going to be?
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. I think even at the Zurich, in his pre-tournament press conference, he cracked a joke about, missing a short putt down the stroke. And that's something we didn't see from Rory all these years. He was very guarded of those heartbreaks and the way that he spoke about them, and making sure to phrase everything, the right way and frame it in the right light, even in his own mind. I mean, I think something that we often overlook is these players, especially a player like Rory, they get invited to come back to the press room every year, especially at a tournament like the Masters, and they get the same questions. And those questions can start to seep into your own brain and have you, looking at your own career in different lights. In a lot of ways, it's very hard to block it all out. We see Scottie Scheffler talk about how he doesn't have any social media. I think at one point he said he blocked the word golf from his news feed, so he couldn't even see any of it. But some of these players, they do see it, and it's really hard to kind of tune all of the noise out. But now that Rory kind of has a reason to even, not be fazed by that noise anymore. He might not even ever get the same questions ever again. It's a totally different narrative shift now. I think that could have him, having a new lightness, a new air about him, just like we saw at the Zurich, kind of, throwing it off his back really, and just moving on to a whole new chapter. So I'm really excited to see how he acts. I mean, there's no way to predict it. I'm really curious to see what his kind of vibe is at the pre-tournament press conference at the PGA. He has now, I'm sure he'll get questions about, can you win all four in 1 year? Obviously, that's a huge thing to ask of someone, even a player like Rory. So we'll see. I mean, he's going to treat this differently. It's an entire new era for Rory.
It really is. It is. It's Gabby, it's 2.0. And it took a while to go from 1.0 to 2.0, but we're now here. Jordan Spieth was also part of that piece that you wrote about scar tissue. And I go back to the question you asked him in his first start of the year at Pebble Beach, and how he looked at his own build. And he's gotten some encouraging results. He's had some good weeks, including going to Augusta National and figuring out some way, come hook or crook, I'm going to finish in the top 15, which he managed to do again. He comes to Quail Hollow with not the same type of pressure, because he's never been close in a PGA, except for 2015 in that glorious year when he won the first two majors. So where do you think his headspace is as he gets to his place where he could cross that threshold?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's funny. I mean, Jordan Spieth is 31 years old, and I think a lot of us talk about him as if he's some washed up golfer,
Yes.
Trying to crawl his way back. I think back to 2014, 2015, Jordan Spieth could have won 10 of these things in everyone's eyes. But now, he's been injured since 2018, Gary. He's been crawling his way back from that wrist injury for a really long time. I think that's something a lot of people overlook. And he's in a completely different place in his career than a Rory, for example. But he also has that career Grand Slam possibility. And going into the PGA, I think it's definitely going to be a discussion. But a different one at that. The mind of Jordan Spieth is very singular. I go back to my reporting for that story on scar tissue, and I actually was able to speak with Jordan himself at the Players Championship, and his response to the idea of scar tissue was very different than I was expecting. He treated it as more of this idea of experience. Even on the 12th hole at Augusta, he acknowledged that now when he steps up to that tee box, he just thinks about the hole in a different way. He uses it as information, as intel for his game. So that just, I think, gives you a sneak peek into how Jordan processes these things. And going into this major, I mean, he's obviously trying to win. He's posted some really great results this year, as you said, but there's a lot of things he's working through, I think, personally and in his game, with Cameron McCormick, his coach of many years. They've got continued kinks to work through mentally and physically, and he's definitely getting there. I mean, there are signs of hope for Jordan Spieth, and I don't think we should always talk about him as this once in a lifetime guy anymore. So, some distant memory from the past. He's 31 years old. He's obviously in great shape right now, and he could do it.
Yeah, he has not played Quail Hollow a lot in his career because of his commitment and loyalty to the Texas events. He's played the last 2 years, tied for 29th last year. He missed the cut the previous year. He did play well, different format at the President's Cup, partnering with Justin Thomas. I'm not particularly surprised, Gabby, with the way that he answered the scar tissue question because he's always tried to find positive space, even though his comments about the mud balls was kind of a vulnerable moment for him. It was a moment of I would describe it almost a petulance that you don't necessarily see or associate with him. I also think the other thing about him is he won the golf tournament, but I have no earthly idea psychologically what the Open Championship did to him, because that 30 minutes alone could have fried his firewall. I don't know. I mean, it was such an extraordinary experience off of what had happened in 2016 at the Masters. But I do know this, like you said, we act as if he's 41, not 31, yeah. and he's shown a lot of magic. All right, speaking of magic, let's end with this. Your life in golf, you don't just cover golf, you love golf. If you can play golf when you're on assignment, you'll figure out a way to do it. Your brother's college career ended yesterday, and you got in the car and you drove 3 hours to watch him try to play his way into NCAA regionals by being the individual title. Tell me about the value of your relationship with your brother through the game of golf as we share some of these photos of him, his Colgate University golf team, and him pursuing something yesterday for the last time. I mean, that he'll remember these days. You know it because you were a college golfer the rest of his life. But what about your relationship with him through golf?
Absolutely. I mean, Robbie is, he's my lifelong playing partner. We grew up playing thousands of rounds together, matches. Over the years, he suddenly started hitting it a mile, and I couldn't compete with him anymore. But I have so many memories with him on the golf course. The way that there I am.
That was you saying, "Let's go."
Yep, and you can see I was pretty fired up there. Our whole family just loves to cheer him on. We have this tradition, actually. We have a group chat with my family and our golf coach, Bobby Eldridge, from growing up, and we send hole-by-hole updates about Robbie. So when I'm on the road and I can't watch him, I'm getting, all the updates from my dad. The amount of detail that he goes into on every shot is incredible. And so to be able to be there in person and watch his college career end was awesome. The fact that he even had a chance to win that spot and go to regionals was huge. His team played amazing on the final day. I think they had the lowest team score of the day, and Robbie had a chance to tie the clubhouse lead on the final hole. He had a 30-yard eagle chip that just skirted by the pin, and you could see everyone was, just so excited that he even had the chance. So it was incredibly special to be there in person. It was a cool moment for all of us. He's starting a full-time job in July and hanging up the sticks for a little bit, but he has a couple more events coming up, and hopefully he can make a run because he's playing so good right now.
Well, look, I think it's great that you jumped in the car. It shows you, most importantly, how much he means to you. But again, this part of your relationship, which was rooted through the game of golf. We got to take a quick break. Next time we see you, you will be sitting next to me in this studio on the eve of PGA Championship Week. Thank you as always. That's Gabby Herzig of The Athletic and, of course, a regular contributor here at 5 Clubs. We'll take a quick break. Some final thoughts coming up right after this. Final moments on a Monday. Rex and Ryan coming up next here on Golf Channel. This past Friday, had a wonderful day because every day, and again, this segment brought to you by Peter Millar. Everything I wear and have worn for more than a decade is the leader in apparel for everywhere you're going, no matter what you're doing. It is Peter Millar. So last Friday, with our great partners, another great partner, Golf Pride, we went down to Old Barnwell. And it's been about a year since I've been there and was lucky enough to run into Nick Schreiber. You've heard me talk about Old Barnwell, what they're doing for kids and women, to see young women on the practice tee preparing for competition, including the NCAA tournament. This golf course from Brian Schneider and Blake Connet. It is a place where you feel like, you know what, this is what golf should look like because it's young, it's old. The holes are a total blast. They support the Evans Scholars through their caddy program, and it is a golf course that is very, very young, but you wouldn't know it because you'd think, my gosh, with these railroad ties and this looks like it's been here 100 years. What a nourishing day. We hope you have a great Monday. Tomorrow, full house with Taylor Johnson and Brendan. We'll see you then.